Welcome into a special Thursday night edition of Another Damn Fantasy Podcast. The Vikings, the Rams, they're on the television. We're on your YouTube channel. Let's get ready for week 8.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get just by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.
Welcome into another edition of Another Damn Fantasy Podcast, episode 55, week 8. As I mentioned, Vikings, Rams, battling it out. Special night for us as I was coming back from vacation yesterday, dealing with all that. And then we're both running for practice tonight. So running a little bit behind, but we will get after it here. It's been a while. It's been a while since a couple weeks since you and I talked, Josh. How you been doing? How's fantasy football treating you? How's everything going?
Fantasy football has been pretty good. I mean, I just keep getting the random unlucky, like, I don't know, like last week it was George Pickens finally going off with Russell Wilson. You know, I kind of felt like that was going to happen, but I benched Pickens in a league, and Tank Dell had a nice zero burger for me because CJ Stroud could only throw for 86 yards. So it's just a weird, I feel like I'm generally doing pretty well, but there's a lot of weird, failures on the parts of my players. So it's not my fault for sure, but
That's right. It's never our fault. It's never our fault. I had to rep the red, as the last undefeated team now.
Yep.
Vikings finally going down, a pretty dang good game against the Lions last weekend, and now they are playing the Rams tonight. So how do you feel about this Rams-Vikings game tonight? You think the Vikes can take care of business?
Yeah, I think we got a good shot. I think going up toe to toe with Detroit was a big game for us. I mean, I know I'm not in the business of moral victories necessarily, but I thought Detroit was one of the best contenders coming into this season, and they definitely showed it. They were hard to stop. I mean, they ran all over us. Goff looks really good this year. They didn't have Aiden Hutchinson. They put enough together on defense, so they're going to be a tough out. But I like that we hung with. Honestly, the only thing I was mad about with that game was after we had that scoop and score, we had that fumble recovery touchdown, took the lead. Our ensuing offensive possession, I think we only ate up like 30 seconds off the clock with some kind of lackluster play calling, in my opinion. But I mean, that's nitpicky when you're going, a chance to go 6-0. You really wish that you handle that better because we had every chance in the world to win that game. But you live and you learn. It's good to have a little adversity. You're not going to win. You're not going to go 17-0. So. Still feel good about my Vikes, and we get to keep playing the best because Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua magically are both back tonight just for the Vikings game. Thank you.
Yeah, and obviously we're starting our podcast after your lineups are locked for tonight. Had we been on here last night, Cooper Kupp would have been my start of the week. I think you just go ahead and put him in your lineup when he's playing. Puka's a little different story. I did put him in one of my lineups tonight, one of my season-long lineups because he's out there. He could score a touchdown. I mean, they're going to throw in the ball when he is out there, but I do know he's a little bit limited. I haven't been watching the game yet tonight, so I don't know if he's been out there yet. But Cooper Kupp for sure was all he was all go. So definitely, hopefully you guys got him into your lineups for tonight. Josh, did you kind of play it the same way, or if you had any of these guys, were you going to just wait a week?
Yeah, no, I think it's what they're both kind of those players where you're almost more scared of sitting them when they score 30 than you are of starting them. And, if they get limited or hurt, like you just have to run that risk. You cannot, it's as much as we get a sense for certain guys that they're more prone to injuries and limitations that way. You can't really think that way. And so, yeah, Cooper Kupp, a full go. He would have been set and forget with him for sure. There was some official reports of Nacua going to be on some sort of a snap count, but even that, I mean, I would still consider him a flex play tonight, just because, I mean, he's capable of 3 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown, which you're going to be pretty happy with. So I think that they're both back. Stafford's still dealing, and the Rams secondary has been pretty lackluster. The Vikings just scored already, and so they're definitely going to need to be in a shootout for most of their games, I feel like. So any receivers like that talented with Stafford at the helm, you got to go with. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, I kind of expect him to feed Cooper Kupp as often as possible for sure tonight. If you're with us here tonight, thank you very much for being here on a special night, the Thursday night. We do appreciate it. It feels good to be back in the saddle after a couple of weeks off. We're going to talk a little bit about news, and then we're going to do our starts and sits of the week. We're not going to go super long tonight. Josh is a Vikings fan, and we want him to actually be able to enjoy the game as well. If this is like Jets, Patriots, maybe we go all night, but not tonight.
Yeah. Well, or how about this? I mean, if the Vikings are rolling them, I'm checking the scores. Maybe we'll just have to keep talking out of superstitious stakes.
Can't
so
stop.
This could be a 3.5-hour podcast or a YouTube video. Who knows?
You can't stop. Well, we kind of talked about Puka and Cooper Kupp. Obviously, they were playing tonight. Let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins traded to my Kansas City Chiefs. I am super pumped about that. I will be talking a little bit more about him in starts and sits as well. But just kind of off the top here, Josh, how do you feel about this trade? If you have, I have DeAndre Hopkins in a 16-team Dynasty league. It's obviously, very thin. There's not a lot of waivers and those kind of things that happen. And I've been sitting on him. Haven't really played him a lot this year because in the Titans. But now I feel like I feel like a little bit of a urgency to potentially get him back in my lineup. Because he's now with Patrick Mahomes. How do you feel about this DeAndre Hopkins trade from a fantasy outlook?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it feels like a match made in heaven, and this is why you don't ever worry about the Chiefs. Like, I mean, if the Chiefs were somehow 2-4 right now, obviously you'd be a little worried. But because they were still 6-0, you never worried. It's interesting because I was considering, Patrick Mahomes is like a QB sit though. Like the fantasy numbers haven't been quite there. I don't think he's gotten over 20 points yet once at quarterback, and it's partly because they don't need him to do a ton, right? They're winning in other ways. He's still playing winning football. He's just not putting up fantasy numbers for us. But the receiving room has always been kind of up in the air, and a guy like DeAndre Hopkins is a perfect fit because he makes so many plays. He's got sticky hands. He wins 50-50 balls. I think he's going to really thrive with Patrick Mahomes. And I don't know, you guys must have a deal with the Titans. You guys just keep trading back and forth your players for the Titans. They got L'Jarius Sneed, and you guys got DeAndre Hopkins, and everything's working out. But no, I think it's great for Hopkins because the Titans offense has been miserable. And so, but when he's had adequate quarterback play, I don't think Hopkins has shown, aside from when he's hurt, he hasn't shown any signs of tapering off really, even though he's quote unquote old for a receiver. So I think putting it with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and they still have some other, obviously they have Kelsey, they have Xavier Worthy who can mix things up a little bit, but they need that outside guy who's going to win those 50-50 balls. And I think Hopkins is an interesting player in a 16-team league for sure. I'm starting him immediately. I mean, if it's a 12-team league and he was like your 5th or 6th receiver, you might still be waiting to see how it gels right away. But the Chiefs, you guys have the Raiders this week, so Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be dealing, and this might be a big breakout week for him as well as D Hop in his first game in red. So yeah, on paper it looks really enticing.
Yeah, you mentioned Patrick Mahomes. I think it's definitely a non-starter in fantasy football right now. He's got a great floor. 14 points is he's scored it about 4 or 5 times already, but there's really no ceiling there this year.
Yeah.
I don't think he's thrown 2 touchdown passes in a game yet. Those kind of, like, he doesn't have to. He hasn't had to right now.
Right.
So I think that's kind of a part of it. Plus, they spent all off season, right, training and working with Hollywood and Rashi and Pacheco, and they're literally just rebuilding on the fly, and they're still winning games. So Patrick Mahomes doesn't necessarily need to be that guy, and so it kind of sucks for fantasy because we drafted him as a top 5 quarterback, top 7 quarterback, and he is not even inside the top 15.
I think
not even inside the top 20 according to Fantasy Pros. So
I think that's the part that hurts the most. I think, like, going into last year, I think expectations were a little bit tempered, but there was tons of buzz about Mahomes getting back to the 5,000-yard season this year. I think that everyone thought he was going to really rip it. And so I think that's adding a little insult to injury there with Mahomes being really lackluster in terms of QB1, I guess, for fantasy.
Got our guy John in here watching the game, watching us. Thanks for being here. If you're not doing anything tomorrow night, check out John, and I think Kev's going to join him for Necessary Roughness. I know they were off on Tuesday as well. Been kind of a weird week here at Bite Size Sports, but thanks for hanging in there with us and always supporting us. I think DeAndre Hopkins is fine. Like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about him coming up. Let's talk about Tampa Bay a little bit. Chris Godwin out indefinitely, obviously a very gruesome ankle injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike Evans, the report for this, I think it's his hamstring, right? He's going to be out until after the bye, which is week 11. It's a couple weeks away still, I believe. So both those guys out, leaving guys like Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillions? I don't know. Let's call them McMillions. I don't know.
McMillions, there you go.
And then obviously Cade Otton tied in there, but any interest in some of these, lack of the better term, like backup wide receivers who are now starting wide receivers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and for Baker Mayfield, who is still a top 5 fantasy quarterback through 7 weeks. What do you think about these guys? Do you have any interest in any of these guys?
I mean, the way they kind of responded against, I know it was never really in doubt. They were never really going to come back and beat the Ravens the other night, but they still put up a lot of numbers, which is what we care about for fantasy. Johnny just put in the chat, already scooped up Trey Palmer. I feel like it was either last year. I think last year there was some rapport developed between him and Baker Mayfield. Jalen McMillan was the guy though that was getting a lot of hype. Maybe not a lot, but he was the one creating some buzz and some hype in training camp this summer. As a rookie, could make some splashy plays, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see them get him going a little bit. I mean, Sterling Shepard doesn't excite me too much. I mentioned Palmer does have some rapport with Mayfield. He is pretty interesting there. I think Jalen McMillan would be a guy I would try to stash and see if he kind of develops into a role that can do some things. They still have a great core of receiving running backs too, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of dink and dunk. And Cade Otton has really kind of come on as well. So I think they're probably going to look a little bit elsewhere in terms of receiver, but I think, for a steady receiver, I think Trey Palmer's probably their best bet, but I might, if I have a chance to look at upside and maybe beat someone to pick up Jalen McMillan, if he's not already rostered in your league, might be worth exploring. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but he looks pretty electric when he gets the ball. I think that he would be one I would see if I can get ahead of a little bit if I were to do that. So.
Yeah, I like the rookie wide receiver there and McMillan. He kind of fits the perfect build of start slow but potentially end fast and great, right? Especially adding in the injuries to the 2 veterans ahead of him. Right. Kind of a perfect storm opportunity for him to really take off in his first year in the NFL. I did not put any thought into this except for just now when you said they'll probably go get a wide receiver. Cooper Kupp's name's been thrown out there a lot. And this division's wide open. Like this could be, especially if Godwin is going to be out for the season. I think right now it's out indefinitely, aka we don't really know. So if it's a clean break, he could be 4 to 6 weeks, a la like a Isaiah Pacheco. But if it's not a clean break and there's a lot of things going on, it's going to be a lot longer. And so if they figure that out, I mean, Cooper Kupp sliding into that slot role that Godwin has now vacated, I think that would be great for Baker, great for Tampa Bay. Yeah. And I don't think it would hurt Cooper Kupp's fantasy value by any means. And I think it would actually continue to help Baker's fantasy value. Stafford doesn't really have any fantasy value, so there's not really anything there on their side. I don't know, just thinking through that, if Godwin is going to be out for the season, could be a good trade for the Buccaneers who are going for the AFC South.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. I mean, the Bucs spent their entire offseason, they've been running it back. They are trying to keep this a contending window or make this a contending window. So yeah, I don't think that's outlandish at all. Try to bring in a big name receiver. So,
and then last one here, we'll just hit on real quick. There's a lot of injuries this week. Tua's coming back, So we didn't put that down. There's that. Hopefully this Miami offense can figure out how to play offense again. Very, very weird couple of weeks without Tua out there. So good to see him be back. Amari Cooper went to the Bills, scored us a touchdown on his first week there. Josh, what are your thoughts on Amari Cooper going to the Bills?
Yeah, I was thinking about it because Dalton Kincaid's been one of my tight end guys, and my first thought, selfishly as a fantasy owner of Dalton Kincaid, was okay. He's already been kind of pedestrian, and now we have an elite alpha pass catcher. But then I kind of, looking back at some of the numbers, like the Bills are second to last in pass attempts per game, so all of their pass catchers are a little bit limited in that regard. But Josh Allen threw 33 passes in Amari Cooper's first game. He got his touchdown. And I'll talk more about Kincaid later. But the thing is, I think the Bills want to throw it a little bit more. I think they want to throw it around. I feel like there's a trend there that they're going to try to start spreading it around and at least air it out a little bit more, which is good for all their pass catchers. I mean, Khalil Shakir has been a decent floor flex player this year. I think Amari Cooper has proven over the years he's with a quarterback like Josh Allen. I think he's going to be a must start going forward. And so I think I like that trade a lot, and wait till we get to tight ends, but preview alert. Dalton Kincaid is someone I kind of like going forward. I'll give some more reasoning at near when we get there, but yeah, I think it makes sense. It's another team that we haven't seen Keon Coleman take off. He was their high draft pick, and so the Bills recognize they need a guy that is proven at wide out, or they felt they needed one, and so now they're 5-2. They have an alpha receiver and an offense that's really kind of chugging along pretty well. So I like the Cooper trade to the Bills. Lee, don't tell me that. The Rams are on the board. No.
Do you have it pulled up behind you?
I do, but I didn't see the score because I've been looking back and forth at like all my screens right now. So
yeah, Kyron touchdown. So what's that make it 7-7?
Yeah. The Vikings was to Josh Oliver, so I'm sure everyone started Josh Oliver.
Oh, great, yeah.
Sam Darnold owners are happy though.
After Hawkinson was gonna,
maybe he was come back, yeah.
He was set out, so we're gonna go to Josh Oliver.
Yep.
Yeah, I would love for the Bills to throw the ball more. From a fantasy perspective, I've got Josh Allen in that 16-team Dynasty league. That's my highest price league, biggest payout. And it tiers towards quarterbacks because there's 16 of them. So we kind of spruced up the quarterback scoring. And so having a guy like Josh Allen in that league can easily put up 60 points, like in a hurry. And man, it's just like, it hasn't really been there because they haven't had to, and they just run the ball so well right now. Right. So would love to see a little bit more passing out of Josh Allen and company. Well, let's just jump into starts of the week here. As we kind of mentioned at the top, if you're with us, thank you for being here. It might be a little shorter show tonight, so Josh can get back to Thursday Night Football and rooting on his Vikings. But we do want to give you guys your starts and sits of the week, and we want to hear from you in the chat. If you got a question about a guy, start sit question. Maybe you're kind of, dabbling with one guy over the other. Like, just start in the chat. We'll answer it. We'll help you out. And we are here for the people. I'll get us started at quarterback here. Josh, I'm going Bo Nix as my starter of the week at quarterback. 20 fantasy points over the last two of his last 3 games. And now he's facing the Carolina Panthers. Man, this team is garbage. Yeah. Josh, the quarterback on your varsity football team could put up 20 points against this guy.
I believe it. I believe it. We have a good one.
Is terrible. So I'm going after it. I almost I didn't see your start for running back. Let me make sure I don't throw. Okay, yeah. So I almost went start of the week running back Javonte Williams.
Yep.
I think you can't necessarily just start your Broncos because they're still the Broncos.
Right. So
guys like Courtland Sutton could probably be started this week. Maybe not Troy Franklin, maybe not some of these other ancillary pieces, but Bo Nix, Javonte Williams against this Carolina defense, have at it. Go ahead and put him in your lineup. And I'm going to sit the aforementioned Baker Mayfield this week. he's quarterback 2 on the season. Like that is just crazy to think about. Baker Mayfield, 7 weeks.
That is wild.
Quarterback 2 on the season, only behind Lamar. Probably would be quarterback 3 should Jaden Daniels not get hurt last week.
Right.
But alas, like he's quarterback 2. But without Mike Evans, without Chris Godwin, from a quarterback standpoint, I want to see what happens. I don't know if I can trust him right now, the first week without both of those guys. Let me see what happens week 1 and see if I have trust to go back to him in week 9. But for this week, I'm going to go ahead and sit Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I like both those picks. I think Carolina is the team that you want all of your fantasy guys to go up against. And so if you are in a position to where you need to start a guy like Bo Nix, yeah, I think you could do a lot worse there. I think he's got some potential. He's ran a lot too. I mean, I think he had 10 carries for 70 yards or I think I saw that stat for him last week. Like he's rushing the ball pretty well as well, picking up yards there. And yeah, Baker, I think we just talked about it. We got to see what happens first. We got to see if those other pieces can get open and be available as much as Evans and Godwin have been before we sign on to keep going with Baker. Yeah, those are good picks. I'm starting CJ Stroud just as more of a like, don't be afraid, everybody. He had 86 passing yards against the Packers. It was a rough fought game. I don't think the Texans offense will be held down for long. I know he's still without Nico Collins, but I just feel like he's too good. And they're going to respond. And they have the Colts. The Colts give up yards to everybody as well. They're not as bad as the Panthers, obviously. They just had a win, but it was against the Dolphins offense led by Tyler Huntley and Tim Boyle. So it's not exactly lights out defense in Indianapolis. So I think Stroud gets back on track here. And I think you can start him comfortably. So that's more of a, don't be afraid of Stroud just because he had a really, really bad game. It was a little uncharacteristic. And then I don't know, this guy might be the most sat quarterback on this segment. And I'm sorry if this is a repeat, but I'm the idiot that keeps starting him. And so maybe this is just for me. I would suggest sitting Anthony Richardson. I might still start the upside. I'm still believing the upside, which is not sound fantasy advice. So I'm qualifying that right here. I just mentioned they're going up against the Texans. The Texans have a great defense. Anthony Richardson just had another week where he couldn't complete 50% of his passes. Like he still shows signs. Like that's the thing. He shows signs and glimmers. Like we don't want that in fantasy, but guys like me who've attached ourselves to Richardson too often, we find ourselves trying to make excuses. But the best advice would be to sit him for other options until further notice. So I'm not running him out there against Houston if I'm making logical decisions, I would say.
Logical.
Yeah.
My MVP ticket, I think I've already passed the time where I could have cashed out on that one. I was all in on Richardson this year. Not as hard as I was with like Kyler Murray, who has kind of really been up and down for me this year. But Richardson, man, it's been tough. But every time you look at his name, you want to click it because he has the ceiling, he has the upside. Yeah. And he's just not getting there right now.
Right.
And this offensive line has been bad. I thought the Colts as a team was going to be pretty good this year. It just hasn't really come together like I thought it was this year for the Indianapolis Colts. Lee here says Diggs will have a good week. I was also going to mention, while you're talking CJ Stroud, if you need high upside for a guy, like don't be afraid to go back to Tank Dell this week. No, he kind of had a bad game with CJ Stroud last week. Diggs is a good guy to kind of throw out there. Like just this Houston offense is good, and everybody has a bad week, so don't necessarily just quit on them. And then Lee says the start of the week is Russ Wilson. Man, I mean Russ did great last week, almost had 25 fantasy points against the Jets, who are supposed to be great, defensively, and just they were kind of decimating. Had a couple guys got injured in that game. My only thing with Russ is like, and I'm going to actually kind of mention this a little bit here on my tight end sits of the week. There's one play. He just throws it up to freaking George Pickens and see what happened. So I don't know. I think that it was hard for the Jets to kind of defensively scheme against him because they hadn't seen him all year. Right. I don't think it's going to be that difficult moving forward to scheme against him. So I do worry about that. Also this week, I think the Steelers just run the ball. over and over against the Giants. So, but Russ Wilson had a great week last week. Let's move on to running backs here. Josh, who is your start and sit of the week?
Yeah, he's not my start of the week, but Najee Harris is interesting. He was over the century mark last week against the Jets. And like you said, Trevor, my fear with Wilson, he was pleasantly surprising last week at getting a ball up to Pickens. But yeah, I don't know how much he's going to need to pass with the Steelers defense and being able to run against the Giants. But my official start feels gross, but I'm going to go Rachaad White. And this is not a guy that I thought I would ever recommend, because I know a few weeks ago I was on the Bucky Irving train. I still kind of am on Bucky Irving. I really like what he's brought to the table in Tampa. But we just talked about the receivers being out. We talked about how Rachaad White, for all his rushing inefficiency, he's a very good receiving back. And I think he's going to see more targets with those receivers out. Against the Ravens, we were all worried about the Bucs having 3 guys because Sean Tucker had a good game, but I think it was the Ravens game was pretty solidifying for me in that still Rachaad White 1, Bucky Irving 2, and then Sean Tucker not too far behind at 3. So like there is still a pecking order, even though there are 3 guys that will get some reps. But as to this point, their offense has been productive enough. And I just think, I'm not saying Rachaad White's your RB1. I'm talking about if you're considering him at like an low end RB2 flex range, I think he's offering a pretty decent floor without having to worry too much about touchdowns. He should get around 10 PPR points. And then if he does get in the end zone, then you're real happy there. So I'm actually starting Rachaad White, which again feels weird. And then
I like that. Can I make a note on Sean Tucker real quick? So everybody thinks Sean, it's Sean Tucker, 3-headed monster. Look how great he looked. He did look good. It was at the end of that game. It was in the fourth quarter. That game was over. Tampa Bay had smashed the Saints that week, right? And so it was just all Sean Tucker. It didn't go back to what it was in weeks 1, 2, and 3, the snap count that you had kind of referenced, but I pulled it up. 48% White, 35% Bucky. Sean Tucker still got 20% of the snaps. So he definitely has eaten into it a little bit more.
Yep.
But that was also the first week back off of an injury for Rachaad White. Maybe we start to see him separate that a little bit more. Early in the season, it was 70-30. Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, and then Sean Tucker wasn't really involved. So, I get all the coach speaking stuff, but Sean Tucker only played in like the end of the game, essentially. So if they're blowing teams out, doesn't help with Rachaad White, but I'm not afraid to go back to Rachaad White either. I think that's a good call.
Yep, for sure.
Oh, and shit. Sorry. Minnesota scored again?
We did? Yay. We're up 14-7 then? I didn't see who scored. I haven't been checking.
Somebody let us know in the chat. Who scored?
Yeah, let us know in the chat, Lee. If Johnny's still there. I'm dedicated to ADP right now, so
you got to pull it up on your phone.
I know. I got to multitask.
Not for streaming rights. Can't show it on TV. Don't want the NFL come calling. ADP shutting us down. Sorry. All right, your sit of the week. You took my sit of the week. By the way,
I know. I was gonna say.
No, it's okay. Go for it.
Well, I think it's because he's been Mr. Reliable, but I think we both see that this isn't going to go well this week, and it's Chuba Hubbard. So I think it's okay that we both have him to emphasize the sit that needs to be. He's got the vaunted Broncos defense coming up, and we saw the Panthers offense just really sputter last week against Washington, who's a defense that's been giving up plenty. They haven't been bad, but there's no reason for them to completely sputter and get blown out like they did. And so Panthers offense looks pretty bad, and now they're going up against Denver. I'm nervous about Deontay Johnson, and there's really no one else to consider from Carolina's offense. So I'm sitting Chuba Hubbard. It makes me very worried, him going up against that defense. Chuba Hubbard had a decent game last week because he got in the end zone, but he had 17 carries for 50 yards. So it's not like he was super efficient last week, even though he put up decent numbers. So I think I'm not worried about Jonathan Brooks quite yet, even though he is practicing, and that's also going to be something that's going to eat into Hubbard. So I think the sell high window is probably gone on him. That would have been a couple weeks ago if you wanted to try to get something for him. But I'm off him this week, and probably going forward, assuming Jonathan Brooks is back, if he shows that he's going to eat into his carries quite a bit, but mainly just because Carolina is bad. Their offense is bad. And
yeah, they are.
I mean, unless you think that he's going to get a lot of catches out of the backfield when they're trying to catch up and play from behind, there's a little logic to that. But other than that, you're not feeling good about Hubbard against
them. It sounds like Bryce Young's going to play this week too.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help anything. That doesn't help anything. I'm on board with you. Chuba was also my sit of the week. The Broncos defense is stellar, especially against the run. Lee says he's watching the NBA, so he can't help us figure out who scored the touchdown for the Vikings.
Lee is multitasking.
Pulled up as I go to the second. Speaking of the NBA, y'all, the bounce is back. And so come back here every Thursday night on Bite Size Sports Network and check out James and Kev on the bounce, talking all things NBA. They are stellar to watch, and they really know their NBA stuff. It's really fun because we got a couple really sharp guys talking NFL on Tuesday nights and a couple really sharp guys talking NBA on Thursday nights. And then we kind of split the difference, right? We try to be sharp guys helping out with the fantasy football stuff. So I have a start for running back. That is Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby's looked great. I mean, in the recent weeks, this Jaguars offense the whole team really has looked terrible. I was very surprised by the way they played Sunday morning. Maybe staying in London kind of gave them a little bit of an advantage over the Patriots who were traveling to London that week. But this week, the Jags, if Travis Etienne is limited or out, but even if he's just limited, he's going to play, but he's only going to have limited snaps. I really like Tank here. Against the Packers defense, who are middle against the run. They're not great. They're not terrible, but they'll give it up a little bit. Last week, we saw Tank Bigsby get 66% of the snaps and 26 rush attempts. That is a workhorse style of back. 26 rush attempts is not something we're seeing across the NFL too often. Again, even if ATN is active, but he's limited, Tank's going to get the majority of the run. I like what I've seen so far from Tank Bigsby here. And Doug Peterson can talk about how he's not taking ETN's job all he wants. I don't know how you don't at least eat into Travis Etienne's job.
Right.
Because he's looked way better. He's looked more explosive than Etienne has this season. I don't know if it's the type of runs he's getting versus Etienne. I'm not sure, but he has looked way better.
Yep. And 26 carries, that's like diamond in the rough amount of volume for fantasy. So that's pretty much, you can, whatever matchup that is, if he's going to get somewhere close to that, you have to jump on that. So I think that's a good start.
All right. Before we get to wide receiver, we're going to build a second half DFS lineup for this game real quick. Have a little fun here. I'm going to show off. So we went on vacation. So I played 0 DFS on Sunday. Didn't play anything. I'm driving 3 hours. Like, it's not really ideal to try to be building lineups while driving in the car with 4 screaming kids. So I don't do it. We go to the zoo all day. I don't play anything. Can't even get Sunday night football lineups in. Finally, it's like 7:30. I sit on the couch. And I'm like, I need something with this football game, y'all. I need to do something. I'm in Nebraska, so I can't even bet sports betting. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm just sitting here watching. So I put in some second half lineups, baby. Nice. Never done it before in my life. Never played second half lineups before in my life. Threw it in there. Came out on top with $1,000 at the top. First time I've ever played a second half lineup in my life.
Wow.
And I binked the $1,000. I went Najee Harris and captain, of course.
Nice.
I actually, when I built this team originally, I actually had Justin Fields in it because Fields, like Russell Wilson, for like the first 3 drives just looked like trash.
Right.
And then Russ had like this long pass to George Pickens, and then they end up scoring. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go change this because Russ is playing this game.
Yeah.
They're in the game. Now Russ has got to figure out. He's obviously just gonna throw it to Pickens all night long. So I throw Pickens in there, and I just go 4 round 1. We all know the story. Pittsburgh dominates the Jets in the second half. Garrett Wilson gets his. But yeah, and I think I had five in here, so take $45 as a $9 entry and take down by 6 points. I was stoked.
Dude, congrats. That's
you.
awesome.
So
that's awesome.
So when you do something right, it's obvious you can do this every time now.
Exactly. That's how it works.
It's too easy. We got to do it again. So let's do it again. Let's share this tab instead.
Wow.
Share. Yeah. And let's go in and let's go to the same contest here. And let's enter a lineup. Why not? Right?
Let's do it.
So if you all haven't played on FanDuel for Showdown, FanDuel, so on DraftKings, whoever's in your captain spot actually costs you more salary. Salary times a half. FanDuel doesn't do that. So you're really just trying to go banking all the points in your captain spot.
Yep.
So Josh, I'll let you tell the people who the best player in the second half is going to be in this game.
I mean, it's hard to tell, but I mean, if Darnold's got 2 TDs and the Rams, I believe, are driving again, it looks like
they're on the 28-yard line. Puka just caught it inside the 15.
Yep. So I think that we're looking at the good old-fashioned shootout. So I think quarterback is in the works for MVP. Jefferson, I double checked. It was Trent Sherfield who caught the other Vikings touchdown. So Darnold got.
Can somebody give me Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor for crying out loud? Come on.
So Darnold's 2 TDs are to Oliver and to Trent Sherfield. So, I mean, it's hard to pick against my guy, Sam Darnold. I think you could do all right with Matt Stafford. And the few times I've been able to check in, it feels like Kyron Williams is getting a whole bunch of touches. So I think any of those 3 would be good. As much as I'd love to put JJ in or Jefferson in there, I mean, maybe he does get the touchdowns in the second half, but right now it's looking like shootout. So I think quarterback's probably your best bet at MVP.
Well, let's go with your boy then.
Let's do it.
So if we go Sam Darnold, I think we got to at least have 2 pass catchers for him because that means he's throwing all the touchdowns, right? That's what we want. I'm okay with putting Jefferson in there.
For sure.
And then I kind of want to they didn't change Puka's price for the second half.
They didn't really? Wow.
No. So it's 5,000. So do we just put him in there?
You have to put him in there for 5.
That's too cheap not to have him in there. So we got 12-5 left. Kyron, as you said, he's going to be the touchdown scorer for the Rams. You could go Stafford and Kupp and just have a true American shootout with Stafford, Kupp, Puka, Darnold, Jefferson.
Yep.
Maybe the kickers start getting involved a little bit in the second half. A little adjustments happen.
I did in my 2. I did a couple lineups, not for much money. I did a couple lineups before the game started, and I have Will the Thrill Reichard on both of those. He's the Vikings kicker. He's been really consistent as a rookie, and he O'Connell said that he was going to throw him out there if our game-winning attempt was instead of 73, if it would have been 68 yards, he was going to throw him out there and give him a shot. Wow. So he's got some range to him. But yeah, if
we go Will, we can get Kyron in there.
Ooh, I like that. Are we worried that we don't have Stafford though?
I'm not worried that we don't have Stafford. My only thing, if we did that, my only thing is I would rather have Jefferson in the MVP than Darnold, because this tells me if we're skinny stacking Darnold, that means we need all of it to go to Jefferson. If it's all going to Jefferson,
right,
I want him in the MVP. Otherwise, we can take another pass catcher. If we think Jordan Addison kind of gets in the game, we think Jalen Naylor gets some action. There's a pass interference on Kupp. That's a tough play. Stephon Diggs did not even need to do that. He didn't need to do that at all. How do you want to go about this?
I would caution against Jalen Naylor. He's very much a doubt. There's going to be Stephon Gilmore on the PI. Yeah. I don't know. It's a bad play.
At least Williams at captain. I wouldn't mind that. And not in this build, but just in general, if you're building some teams.
Yeah, I mean, Addison is. He hasn't been what we expected him to be this year so far in terms of consistency with numbers. Cam Akers is not getting in there because Aaron Jones is playing. So is Ty Chandler. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of adding the Stafford Cup there and going with, if the Vikings keep taking the lead, and they're going to have to keep dealing and pushing the ball down the field.
Ooh,
wait, we have just short of it. Oh man.
Yep. I thought we could get there.
That changes things then, yeah. I mean, we
could get Addison. If we could go Addison there, so you got Stafford.
Oh, that's not
you got Stafford, Puka, skinny stack, and then you got Addison. Darnold double stacked.
That looks good to me.
You like it?
I do. I like that.
All right, for the next $1,000, there it is, y'all. Oh, Stafford looking like. There goes Cup. Wow, Stafford looking like, I don't even know, Big Ben or.
Did he run it in?
Aaron Rodgers? No, but he had a little loop-de-doop, like he undercut the defender.
Oh boy.
And then found.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
And then found Cooper Kupp wide open.
Of course he did.
All right, I'm gonna put that in there.
All right.
And maybe after the show, I'll build some more. If that's the $1,000 winner, we'll be splitting that one for sure. Don't dupe us if you're in the chat. Don't dupe us, please. Find somebody else to play.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the hardest thing about Showdown is just you don't like if I put in a duplicated lineup and I got first place and now you win $500,
right?
Or maybe there's a train and there's 6 of you that win and you win $100 instead of $1,000. Like, I just don't want that. So I've always tried to find ways to be a little different. Putting wide receivers in your MVP spots on FanDuel will make you different quite often.
Yep.
Most often, if you play Showdown, it's your quarterbacks, because they score the most points, obviously, but they are the MVP combined, especially if it's 2 good quarterbacks. Like 70 to 80% of the lineups have a quarterback at the MVP spot. So literally just changing it to the wide receiver and expecting it to go through one guy does a lot for you in terms of not being duplicated, and you still have opportunities to go to the top. I actually have quite a bit of success on Showdown stuff, and that's what I'm doing. So if you ever want to talk more Showdown or talk more DFS, jump in our Discord. I would love to talk all day long about DFS stuff, but we've got 2 more starts and sits to get to here, and let's get through it so we can go enjoy this shootout and the money that we're about to make with our DFS.
One more quick DFS thing. Your matchup too. You looked at in your $1,000 winning lineup, you had a DST, right? There are some I've seen winning lineups that have had both DSTs, both kickers, and it feels weird because you don't use your whole salary. You don't use all the value you have. But if it's a low scoring game, if it's a Thursday night game with offenses that stink, like your defenses, and if it's going to be a field goal fest, all of a sudden you have a nice lineup that not everyone's going to be willing to try. So I'm not saying you should do that all the time, but in certain matchups, it can be a sneaky way to get ahead. Yeah.
I'll pull it up real fast. There was some defense. So this lineup got 16, ended up in 16th. But they had defense in the captain spot, right? So they had Steelers defense, Jets defense, both running backs, and then obviously it doesn't work out because the Jets kind of sucked in the second half, and you're going to have that.
Right.
But still, I mean, Najee at 25 and Steelers defense at 16, he did separate. But before that last touchdown at the end of the game, I mean, you got to think that last touchdown at 1.5 times the points, that's 9 points that he got. He was sitting right around 16 points as well. So he separated on that very last drive, which was awesome. Man, I was sweating it hard because I just knew they were going to bring Warren back in, and then they put Najee in. He scored. I was like,
oh, that's
silently celebrating because my kids are all sleeping. But
fair enough.
It's just a good point. Like this lineup was right there, and they put defense in.
Had every chance in the world.
So it definitely can happen every once in a while. It can happen in this game. Maybe something gets wild in the second half and the defenses come out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I'm going to go my start of the week, running my wide receiver start of the week, DeAndre Hopkins. I'm telling you, just go to him, fire him up. This guy's a pro wide receiver.
Yep.
He's got a monstrous catch radius. He has all the talent in the world. We've all seen the talent the first 12 years of his career. And now he's got a new fire, right? He's feeling it now. He's got Patrick Mahomes throwing to him. If you don't think Andy Reid didn't stay up like all night long, scheming up, drawing up multiple plays for this guy, like you haven't been watching the NFL for the last 2 decades.
Right.
Andy Reid was like, man, give me a couple cheeseburgers. I'm ready for DeAndre Hopkins on this team, baby. So I just think Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and company, they're going to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to get him involved early. And what better team to do it against? And you mentioned earlier, the Raiders, man. Like this is the perfect scenario for a new wide receiver to join this offense. Patrick Mahomes averages 300 yards per game against the Raiders in his career and 2.5 touchdowns per game against the Raiders. It's a different Mahomes and a different offense this year, obviously.
Right.
But it's still the Raiders. It's still Patrick Mahomes. And I if you need a flex-worthy start or I've got him in a league, I have to start him. I'm going DeAndre Hopkins. I'm feeling good about it too.
Yeah, you mentioned the hungry aspect too. Yeah, I mean, when has he really played with a contender? Maybe Deshaun Watson's first year they got to the playoffs with him. That's about it. Then he had Cardinals and then Titans. Like he's like, I'm going to a team that's going to be in the Super Bowl. Like this is awesome.
He's ready. He's ready. It's like Amari Cooper, or not Amari Cooper. Who got traded as hamstring was injured? Devontae Adams, right? His hamstring hurts. And then all of a sudden he was healthy again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm ready to play now. Let's go. Exactly. This week, let's sit Terry McLaurin. I know Washington has been a really fun offense to watch, but it doesn't appear that we're going to get that rookie versus rookie matchup we were hoping for. It looks like Daniels will not play this week. And if that's the case, even if Daniels was playing, I don't really like McLaurin against the Chicago defense. I would start Jaden Daniels if he was playing and he was healthy.
Right.
But that's because he runs so often. Terry McLaurin against this Chicago Bears defense is legit. Right. And I just that type of offense and the inconsistencies they still have, and it's still a rookie quarterback, or now it's going to be Marcus Mariota. Like I'm just not really into Terry McLaurin this week. I think that we should go ahead and sit him and any other pass catcher really against the Chicago Bears.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. And Daniels is questionable, but he may not be 100% either way. So even if he is there, and the Bears, they have a good
right now. Most of the projections have him at 0. Like they're not really projecting him to be in. So we'll see if he makes it back or not. I'm just not necessarily excited about it.
Yep, I hear you there. I think those are good picks. I am starting for my wide receivers. I think this is another Juwan Jennings week. He's got the rapport with Brock Purdy. They have the Sunday night they have the Sunday night primetime game against the Cowboys, who haven't quite been the team we expected. Ayuk is out for sure. Debo was in the hospital. He's battling sickness. I hope he's okay there. I don't know all the details on Debo. Kittle's questionable with the foot strain. And there's so it looks like, the Niners are pretty banged up in the pass catcher area, and Juwan Jennings has proven this year when he's gotten more opportunities, he's really responded. So I think this might be another game for him where he kind of breaks out a little bit. Ricky Pearsall came back. There's a great story outside of fantasy and outside of football, getting back onto the field for regular season game. So good on him. And he got a nice ovation when he came in, and he had 3 catches for 21 yards. So that was not nothing, but I just feel like this might be a game where Purdy leans on a guy he knows a little bit more, and has had some success with in the past. So I think Juwan Jennings has a pretty good game for the Niners. My wide receiver sit is kind of a weird one. I'm nervous about Zay Flowers this week. And not that I don't think he could put up big numbers. He just feels very boom bust to me. Out of the 7 games, he's had 9 targets in 4 games, but he's had 4 targets, 2 targets, and 1 target in the other 3 games. And so there are games where he's just not getting open or not getting open. He's not getting enough targets. Mark Andrews has been coming on as of late. Rashad Bateman had a big game last week against the Bucks. There might just be too many mouths to feed, especially with Derrick Henry rolling as well. And on top of all that, they have a matchup against the Browns, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Browns are good and they're going to beat the Ravens, but this is an AFC North classic rivalry matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns find a way to kind of not keep it close, but like it might be a little ugly is what I'm trying to say. It might be a little messy. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be 45 points for the Ravens and Zay Flowers with 2 60-yard touchdowns, things like that. So it feels a little bit boom bust to me. And, he came back to the game after getting hurt as well. So he has a little ankle thing going on. Obviously he came back, so he's not like out or anything like that, but just a guy that I'm probably avoiding if I can, just because there's too many factors that are, leading me to think he may not have a good game this week. So
I don't hate that at all. I do think that, this Niners Cowboys game, there's so much to play for on both sides, like both teams. There is a lot. I kind of think the Cowboys come out of the bye week and stomp them.
Wow. That would be
I think that they're really going to, I was texting with my grandfather, Lee, who in the chat, about CeeDee Lamb. He's trying to get him in one of our leagues, and I'm not going to give him up. But I think the time to get CeeDee Lamb was late, is past. I think before the bye week was the time to get him.
Yep.
I think the Cowboys are going to regroup and just pepper CeeDee Lamb with targets over and over and over again. And I think that, Dak has shown the ability to just get hot. And I think this team is healthy coming out of a bye, going up against a team that's not healthy and struggling.
Right.
And I think Juwan Jennings is the right call. I just think that Dallas, this is the opportunity.
Stifled them a little bit. Yeah.
And take care of business.
Yeah. I don't think that's outlandish. That totally makes sense.
All right. Let's hear your starts and sits for tight ends this week.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a Dalton Kincaid truther, and I mentioned him at the start of the show. I know he has not been and has not lived up to what we thought, especially with not a bona fide number one in Buffalo. For a guy that can line up like a receiver and has all that talent, you would think that he would have kind of taken control of the target share. And he hasn't quite done that yet this year. The thing I like the most, though, is he has at least six targets in his past 4 games. It's consistent. And kind of like I was mentioning at the beginning, I know they just got Amari Cooper. I feel like I'm getting the sense that it's trending in the right direction with the amount of pass attempts per game. And I think that only opens it up for other guys to get involved. I mentioned their season average is 27 pass attempts, which is second to last, but last week they had 33. The past 3 games are averaging 29. So it is trending upward. Maybe it isn't going to be perfect, or is it going to be that much more that I'm expecting? But I just feel like at the tight end position, I know some other guys are coming on, but I still like Dalton Kincaid. I did have an honorable mention, though, with the segue from Amari Cooper. I think David Njoku had 10 catches on 14 targets last week. And, I held off on him because of the matchup against the Ravens that we just kind of mentioned. It's going to be an AFC North, tough sledding, messy match. I get the sense. But with Deshaun Watson out, there is a better offense in Cleveland. There is more opportunities for pass catchers. And with Amari Cooper gone, Njoku, we saw get a lot of targets. So I like Njoku as an honorable mention. If you're like one of those people like, this guy still thinks Kincaid can do it on pass time, right? I can sense people thinking that. So I hear you.
Like, again, this guy again.
Exactly. My sit of the week is Jonnu Smith. And I don't know if people are starting Jonnu Smith in Miami, but I started to see people pick him up in leagues, in shallower leagues.
Tua's coming back. They're starting to feel good.
Right. And he's got 15 targets over his past 2 games, which is a really nice number for a tight end. But you just mentioned it. Tua's coming back. Tyreek Hill's healthy. We know that. Waddle looks like he might be able to play. The running backs are still probably when Tua's there, the running backs are a better receiving option than Jonnu Smith, in my opinion. I think the Dolphins feel it as well. So I'm not going to jump on the Jonnu Smith train and think he's a sneaky play yet. So I'm sitting him. I don't know if anyone is starting him. I just feel like there's some buzz for him right now, and I'm not going to fall for that with Tua coming back.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, those are my tight ends.
Well, I'd say don't look now. The starting tight end for the Green Bay Packers is not Luke Musgraves, who we all thought it was going to be coming into the season. It's Tucker Kraft, the tight end 4 on the season. Tucker Kraft, probably not in your starting lineups yet, but he should be. He's had double-digit fantasy points 3 of the last 4 games. He's been in 80+% of snaps over the last 4 weeks. He's an integral part of this pass-heavy offense. And now he gets to face the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, who doesn't salivate when they get to see the Jacksonville Jaguars on their schedule? I'll be playing Tucker Kraft over quite a bit of tight ends out there. I think, your big ones, the Kittles and Kincaids and Kelseys and Andrews, like who's coming back now. Like there's some guys that you wouldn't start him over. But most everybody else, I'm going Tucker Kraft, including starting him over Pat Freiermuth, who's my sit of the week in Pittsburgh. Yep. Freiermuth's had a pretty decent season. But we kind of talked about it earlier when I was watching that Steelers game. It was just like throw a bomb to George Pickens and run the ball, throw a bomb to George Pickens.
Yep.
And then every once in a while, they'll run a play action pass and hit the tight end in the flat, but they hit like 3 different tight ends. It wasn't even Freiermuth every time. So I don't really like.
Darnell Washington got some run.
Yeah, exactly. Like this Pittsburgh offense wants to run the ball, and they're facing the Giants, who are a bottom 10 against the rush. You mentioned it earlier, Najee Harris kind of being a guy you thought about with start of the week. I mean, absolutely, he needs to be in your lineup this week. I expect Pittsburgh to run the ball like 40 times, 30 times, and then just try to get out of there. The Giants are trash on defense. They can't stop anybody. Why do they need to put the ball in Russ's hands? So I don't like Freiermuth this week because I like the run offense with Harris and Warren in Pittsburgh against the Giants.
Nice. Yeah, I'm with you on both of those as well.
All right, start sit Caleb or Kyler. Caleb against the Washington Commanders. Who's Arizona playing this week?
We have the Dolphins.
The Dolphins. I haven't. This was very easy. As soon as I read it, I already knew who I was going to say. So I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to be distracted by the fact that the Commanders played the Panthers last week because their pass defense is not great. And Jaden Daniels might be out, so it should be a relatively close game. Or the Bears should do pretty well, is what I meant to say. I'm gonna still go Kyler. I'm gonna still go Kyler against the Dolphins, though. I think he's got a chance to rebound a little bit. Who do you like?
I was going Caleb. Instantly going Caleb. What you mentioned it, right? Like, don't be fooled. They were going against the Panthers last week. This Commanders defense has been shredded. I love Caleb. DeAndre Swift's fine this week. DJ Moore obviously should have a great game. If you're in a pinch, guys like Keenan Allen maybe, but really DJ Moore, Caleb, and Swift I think are. Cole Kmet could be a start of the week for us, tight end. So yeah, I like Caleb over Murray for this week. And I think that'll be it, Josh. I think that'll kind of take us to it. You can go enjoy the rest of the football game on Thursday night, and we'll do this again next week. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah, so pretty much just on this right now. My Mike on the Vikes stuff has been taking a hiatus because we have section playoffs for Minnesota high school.
Good luck
football.
Friday night, right? Or Saturday?
Saturday, yep. So we have a big game. We have a big game coming up, and so it's been a lot.
How many games from state, the championship?
If we actually got the 1 seed in our section, so if we win on Saturday, we only have one more game. That's win, go to state, lose, and season's over. So it's getting intense, but it's been really fun. It's been really fun. So once if and when our season ends, hopefully not for a while, you can find me on Mike on the Vikes. You can always find me on Twitter at JLM8 to talk about the Vikes. You saw my score prediction and my little tagline there. But otherwise, I'm just sticking with ADP for now, and we'll go from there as I try to navigate my fantasy teams as well. So
yeah, I'm not kidding you. So we did tournament, baseball tournament. Then we did vacation, and this weekend we have baseball tournament. I don't know how much football I've been watching. Not enough.
Right.
I barely played any DFS. I barely got my lineup set tonight because we had baseball practice. It runs late, so I'm desperately trying to make sure I get Cooper Kupp in all my lineups. Like, it has been crazy around here.
Hey, you don't need to play DFS as much if you're going to win $1,000.
That's true.
You're going to turn $9 into $1,000. You're good.
Throw a random ass team together and win $1,000. I'll take it. This is our last weekend of baseball though, so I am, going to be even more engaged in podcasting the rest of the year, the rest of the NFL football season. Maybe we'll have some other stuff. We'll have some fun. And I'll just remind everybody, in a couple weeks is Thanksgiving, and Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, ADP does our annual Skanksgiving special, because that's what you used to call when I was growing up, but I guess nobody else calls it that. We found last year. So we'll invite everybody on from Bite Size. We'll have a great time. It'll maybe go a little longer. We'll talk football. We'll talk Thanksgiving Day slate. We'll talk about life. We'll have a lot of fun. It's a great time. It's the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, so we're usually all just kind of hanging out, not doing much anyways, while the turkeys and everything are smoking upstairs. So make sure you stick around all season long, but especially here coming up at the end of November when we'll have a lot of fun with that. Follow Bite Size Sports. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We are on our way to 700 subscribers. Josh, I hope the Vikings have great luck tonight and win a football game. And I sure hope that our lineup is the one sitting at the top of the leaderboard. I will keep you posted. If you want to talk DFS, come to our Discord. We'll do it all day long. We'll talk fantasy, season-long fantasy, everything in between. Until then, good luck this week. We'll see you next week.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get.